Hello and good afternoon. This is DJ, and I'm Brendan O'Callaghan and Ron Sargent on this Hangout on Air. We're going to follow up from last week's video podcast. What do you call these things? Video podcasts?
Yeah, video podcast.
Yeah. Vodcast? I don't know.
Oh, sounds like there should be vodka involved.
Ooh, yes. Well, it is almost the end of the week. We're going to talk about what's in our toolboxes. So, as developers, we use a lot of tools that other people might use, might not use, might be interested in. So, and I think it was one of the comments, wasn't it, Brenton, from on the last video, that people would be interested in us talking about tools we use.
Yeah, I think especially with developers, one of the things is we take for granted. Once you discover a tool, you just start using it and you take it for granted, and then you show it off to somebody and they go, wow, how did you do that? And it's, oh, I use this thing I've always been using. But not everybody, or it's great to discover new tools, let's say. I love discovering new tools.
Yeah, yeah. And Ron, I'm going to put Ron on the video. Say hello, Ron.
Hello?
You sound surprised. You are actually live, Ron. So I think Brenton and I are probably going to be talking predominantly about front-end tools, but Ron is probably going to talk about some back-end tools, right, Ron?
That's true, because I don't do much front-end work these days. So I suppose draw from recent experience, more to do with problem solving, really, around debugging and tracing and installing Yori and the gateway component, etc.
Excellent, looking forward to it. All right, well, let's start with Brenton. So, Brenton, you want to go first with a random pick from your toolbox? So
Yeah,
I'm going to
because
share your other screen, which is your screen, your desktop, right?
yeah, that sounds good. So I have a list of things I want to briefly cover today, but I think the first one I'm going to talk about is going back to the front end thing. One of the things that traditionally wouldn't have been an SAP focus if you're developing an SAP is source code control, because that used to be handled by the SEAC editor, all that kind of stuff. We didn't need to worry about it. So one of the tools I use frequently is a tool called SourceTree. I'm just going to pop the website up here. It's sourcetreeapp.com. Now, SourceTree is a free tool that I use for all of my source code management on Git. So I use Git as my source code control of choice. And SourceTree is absolutely superb for keeping up, well, with multiple projects. So if I just bring up SourceTree here now, as I use it. So you can see all the various different projects I have. You can see the status of each project, whether I've downloaded the latest version, whether there's updates I need to pull. And you can pull from websites like GitHub, I should say, for the public one, or if you have a private like GitLab installation.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to kind of just show you is how easy it is to use. So if I take, for example, JADS here. So if I double click on this guy, JADS is something I did a while back. It's an open source Node.js development server. Yeah, just another development server. So it's just a web server I created in JADS, and as you can see here, this has got the full history of all the changes I've made. I can push any new changes to GitHub if I want to publish anything different, or I can pull changes as well. So this is a great tool for keeping track of all that, and it has all the
tree.
Yeah, it's got the full tree in there as well, and it has support for all of the little known Git functions like stashing if you need to temporarily put away some stuff you're working on. Or it's got the ability to, well, it's great for collaboration and all that with different people, and pull and push from different repositories. So that's my number one anyway, SourceTree.
I did use that before as well when we were working on the iPhone app, Barclays.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
No. I think you should say not done that kind of work again.
So Brenton, how is that? How does that work well with your editor of choice? Do you want to talk about that as well?
My editor of choice. Well, the nice thing about SourceTree is that it can work alongside any editor, because at the end of the day, it's just picking up my files from my file system. But I will pick up on my. You've segued quite nicely into what I wanted to talk about, which is my editor of choice. And I'll talk about my web editor of choice first, and it's not Sublime Text, because I know that's your baby, DJ. My web editor of choice is Brackets.
Brackets.
Now, this is quite a little known one. It's a very lightweight web editor. I'm trying to think of the history. I used to know the history of behind it. It was a closed source editor, but now it's an open source editor. I think through Adobe, but I could be wrong on that. I'd have to check. But the single best feature about this is this little button over here. It looks like a lightning bolt. It's called Live Preview. So if I hit Live Preview on this website I have here, it goes away and launches the website, or in this case, launches the page I'm working on. But what I can do then is, so you can see there behind it, you got the web starter kit. I can click on this and it'll highlight on screen exactly where I am. And I can say, for our podcast. And as I edit, whether I edit the CSS, whether I edit the HTML directly or any of that kind of stuff, it updates instantaneously. So I can debug, change stuff on the fly, see what it looks like in the finalized website immediately.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And you say, a web-based editor, but clearly you'd want to run that offline as well when you're on the train, so I can see that you're running against localhost there.
Exactly. It does that automatically. It says, oh, you're running on your laptop, so therefore I'll do everything locally, so you don't need any web server installed, which basically takes my JADS concept and throws it out the window. Although you still need JADS for SAP UI 5, so it doesn't pick up on that.
Cool, very nice indeed. And so you've got all your source code, your front end source code under source control, and this is the editor that you use day to day, right?
Yeah, this is the editor I use mostly. The other editors I would use, because I tend to switch between a number, would be probably Sublime Text, this one, and if I'm feeling command line-ish, I use Nano or VIM. They're my main editors.
Very nice, very nice. So what other goodies have you got in your toolbox?
So other goodies in my toolbox, obviously I use Google Chrome. I'll close this one just because it launches a kind of a light version of Chrome for that stuff. But if I bring across...
A light version of Chrome?
Yeah, so it disables some of my add-ons and whatnot. But I use Chrome as my web browser of choice. But what I wanted to show you was extensions. And it's the extensions that make my Google Chrome the best thing for me when I'm developing. So obviously I've got the standard stuff like AdBlock and whatnot. But we've also got stuff like JSON View, which formats JSON and makes it nice and easy to view. I think you use that one as well, DJ.
I do, and this, yeah.
The other one is Postman. They're the main two add-ons I have in my Google Chrome toolbox that allow me to do basically web development in a nice, quick and easy way.
Yeah, Postman's fantastic. I guess, Ron, you've come across and used Postman in your gateway arena, right?
No, I haven't used Postman. I use the other one, DHC.
Oh, yeah, HTTP client or something, REST client. Yeah, I think there we go. There's a number of different ones, and I actually flip between the two. I do like Postman, but I do like the other one as well.
I'm not sure if Postman was around when I started using Postman.
No, it wasn't. Or at least we didn't know about it. I remember talking to you about it. We didn't know about it at the time, but then it sort of came on stream, and I think features were added sort of thick and fast quite quickly after that.
I have one more in my toolbox, DJ, if I may be permitted.
You may be permitted.
And this is kind of... I do a lot of web development and proof of concepts type stuff at the moment. So I use VMware Fusion on my Mac, or I would use what's the one by Oracle, VirtualBox. Yeah, so I use those because I spin up and down virtual machines just to prove concepts. I do 7 or 8 a week. So this is my tool of choice for being able to spin up a couple of Linux instances, run 3 or 4 side by side, have a nice little network, private network and whatnot. So for proving stuff, so you can see at the moment I have a virtual machine with a GitLab installation at the moment, which I installed yesterday to prove some stuff for, I think it was client-side certificates.
So how much RAM have you got on your laptop?
So I'm using a MacBook Pro, which is about 3 years old. It's got 8 gigs of RAM, Core i5 processor, and a solid-state drive. And the only reason I'm able to do what I do with VMware is probably because of the solid-state drive.
Yeah.
If without that, I'd only be able to run one machine at a time without melting something.
Interesting that that the I/O is a major factor as much as RAM.
Absolutely. I mean, the limiting factor of my laptop at the moment now with the solid state is probably the processor, but it was the hard disk before I replaced it.
Right. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing some of that, Brenton.
No problem.
Let's jump over to Ron. So, Ron, what have you got for us?
Okay, thanks.
I'll
Well,
share your screen as well.
I need to screen share.
Oh, that's a familiar site.
Yeah, you're
Oh, the way I didn't mention it at all.
too familiar. So, what about Fiori? I suppose
Yeah, Fury
there's,
is always good to talk
there's
about.
some, because there's quite a large application footprint now, and it's much more integrated with the Launchpad, as you know. A lot of it's driven by the things called intents, for one thing, which I briefly spoke about with you before. But the
Yeah,
idea of intent is you have a semantic object, such as a purchase order, and then you have an action that you can perform on it, such as approve or display. So there is an intents list. It takes quite a while to run it, but there are some things I can show you. So this one here is not very good actually, because the whole package thing's a pain. I don't have the favourites up either, but I can show you how to find them. But you can test the intents, because when you have an intent, it's there as a delivery navigation. So Launchpad all being about navigation, when you click on a tile on the front page, it needs to know where it needs to go in terms of application. And if that intent isn't properly configured, then it won't work. So
nice.
you can
Yes.
check those. And I'll try and remember the name now.
Well, talking of intents, while you bring that up, I did see there's some news on the Fiori Launchpad recently, and there's a new transaction for analyzing intents. Right, there's in the UI2 space. So I'm looking at the documentation here, analyzing intents for SAP Fiori Launchpad. I think it's UI2 FLIA, Fiori Launchpad Intents Analysis. That's a new report. It's actually not available in the system that I've got our ERP on HANA trial, so it must be very, very new.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how you set them up. Lost it now. So a lot of these things aren't on any menus that I can find. So Flyer
Menus? Who
was
uses
Flyer
menus?
was one. Why are you doing that? Really? Okay. I'm sure it was there. Yeah, I use these. It's a bit slow though. Damn stupid prefixes. So yeah, if you just run it, it will give you all of the intents. If you're not sure what you can have, so if we did purchase, I can check my particular user to see if they're set up.
Yeah.
Configuration thing doesn't really matter, I think.
So that intent there, that's the semantic object, isn't it? The
That's
purchase
right.
order,
So
and then
the
the
intent
action would come after the
broken
dash.
down in two parts. So you have the hyphen and then it's the action. So
Yeah.
I'm checking for all actions that I can do on that particular object. And that would pretty much tell you what you've got installed, because I think this works on what's installed. So it's not there for every single thing. I think this catalog, the intents catalog, whatever you call it, gets updated when you install something. Anyway, I'll go to another session while I'm waiting for that.
And what was the transaction code for that? Because I missed that.
Yeah, so as UI2, so it's the UI2 namespace slashes FLIA. But what I did was I just did an SE mark. Here we go. So you can see, checking things out, that some of these are red, some are amber, and some are green.
I think we may have
The ones
lost
that
your
are
screen share.
green
Yeah.
should work.
We're on your screen. Oh, there we go. We got it back now. It's just caught up.
I think the thunder and lightning that's happening around your area, Ron, is interfering.
No, it's stopped now. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
see we can see the red and green and yellow now.
Yeah. there's quite a lot of technical information here as well. But this is basically checking my roles as well. So is it this one here? Yeah. This PSD tells me that I've got the role assigned. So it's actually when I've got an X here, then that should be working, and these ones do work. The other ones aren't configured, so we're not using them. So that's quite a useful way of finding out if somebody's actually set up properly, and that the actual intent will work. There's some other stuff in here as well, so all about how it's set up in the launchpad. So it's checking all these things.
And so this is very useful from a kind of especially if you had a demo system, you're trying to figure out what's set up and what's not. But could you see this being used actively in a support role as well, Ron? Because I'd imagine if there was a help desk issue, you know, A, B can't access C, D, then you can check it in here.
The first thing you go to, unless you knew it well, if you knew that particular setup, after a few times you probably you need role so and so. Sometimes it's the case if you need two roles. Normally you need a role to see the catalogue, and a role to run the application.
It's quite
if
interesting.
You don't have a role to run the application, so even though you can see it, you can't run it.
Yeah, I think Ron, you and I have talked about this before. It's quite interesting that the Fiori concept and the Launchpad in particular are relatively new technologies, but already we're seeing the classic SAP abstraction approach to everything, and I think it's necessary. Actually, this might be a subject for another hangout, but the whole abstraction nature of this means that it's ultimately very flexible, but also it does mean that you have to dig in a little bit and find out exactly what's going on, right, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, this is really the main part that will make anything work for you, because this drives the navigation. So I've said that at the end of this is there's a URL. So whereas before on the old Launchpad you used to connect the URL directly, and you could still do that, but here it's the end. Once you've got the navigation in place, that shouldn't need to change. And then obviously if the application gets a new version or whatever, you provide your own alternative. You just change the endpoint there. No changes needed here. So once you get,
I think the key, that's the key, isn't it? As long as you know where the abstraction, that's the key, isn't it? As long as you know where the abstraction works and how it connects, then changing it in the right place will do the right thing.
Yeah, and this is a bit still needs a bit more explanation and working out. It's not always clear what. And when you've got things like the chip IDs, and well, I know what the chip is, but how you find it, still get quite a lot of problems with chips not loading or tiles not displaying. But anyway, so that's quite a high level check-in thing there. Gateway traces. So
yes, gateway traces.
But these are fairly new because the payload trace came along. And the other thing, it's not in here, is it? No. So basically, you have. I'm already set up. If I'm not set up, you need to add somebody. So, for example, do this. So if I want to trace them for a while, you can also do it on a URI. So one particular service, I think. So then this comes here to this area here. Probably tracing on, but by default it's secure.
Yeah, so just the point about what you just did then, I think also the screen is lagging about 20 seconds, 10 seconds behind your voice. But anyway, you've got the username and the request URI prefix, just to make it clear for the viewers that it's an either-or thing. So either you can trace on a user and have trace everything they do, or you can say, well, actually I'm only interested in calls to a particular route of a URI.
Yeah. I tend to do it on a user basis anyway. So I've never actually tried the other one. But yeah, it would be useful. Probably more in a maybe a productive scenario or something when the service itself doesn't seem to be working properly. So then you can do a performance trace and a payload trace. Now, the performance trace does one thing, and what I'll do, I'll actually do one on my user, and I'll actually do a quick demonstration. Okay, so save that configuration. Tracing is now on. for probably 2 hours. I think the time's out. Then if I went to, you're probably not going to see this because I'm in another application. Actually, no, I'll go back. And so if I look at activate and maintain services, now I think most people who work with Gateway will know about the error log.
Yeah.
But there is a couple of things on this, because I don't know where the settings come from, but quite often the settings are wrong. You have to do this reselect thing, because here it's saying by default it's doing this kind of search. Default setting should be this, and again it's not default, because it comes up with this one by default.
One second, Ron. I think the screen is lagging behind again. So
okay,
give it a couple
by
of
default
seconds.
it comes up with research every time I open it, and it should be default settings, I would have thought. Every time I change it back to default, it comes back to 3 search when we open it.
These things are sent to testers.
So let's just see if we've got any logs here. What I'm going to do is come back to the trace in a moment.
I noticed, by the way, while you're looking, in your favourites in the menu, you didn't have Service Builder. Is that for a reason, or am I just missing something?
Because I just typed the transaction and SEGW's shorter.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more recent transactions for Gateway that.
I prefer the IWFND/maint_service. That's my favourite transaction.
It's a good workout for the fingers.
It is. It's also a very proud day when you realise you've remembered IWF/IWFND, blah, 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 blah. And I always forget, or I do a /n IWFND and then forget. Anyway, second slash. Anyway, sorry.
So, having got there, I've looked at the error log and there's some old errors. But if I pick one, again, it might take off the update. Cannot determine business object. Now, I fixed this one. I know what's wrong with it. But if I didn't know, then what I can do is I can choose to replay it, either through the Gateway client or in a web browser. So I picked Gateway client. It will stay in system because I'm only showing my SAP desktop, and it will take the URI and also the payload into, if there was one, into the Gateway client. Can you see that?
We can see that. Yeah, we can see the Gateway clients. Yeah.
I have a question on that one, Ron. So if you were, let's say you were tracing DJ. Let's say DJ had made a request, and he's absolutely broken the whole system, and the request failed, and then you come along and you try to reissue that request. Would it do that request as you? I assume it would, because for security reasons.
Me, yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to execute this just so that now something should go into the trace. But obviously, the other thing I could do here is I could debug it. But what I might want to do first is just check it and see what happens. So
see if you've already fixed the issue.
Next, I'll now go back.
200. Okay.
Green. Is that semantically green or green?
No, it's semantic go, actually.
Right, so back to traces. Just let me know when you're updated.
We can see your menu gateway. Oh, gateway traces. Yeah, I think it's catching up now. So you're selecting performance trace, right?
Okay, so yeah, the performance trace there is basically this is the one service call. If I double click that, it will open up.
Nice $count OData request there.
Yeah. And then I can double click that again to open it right up into the components it went through, etc., to get to that particular. So I can see here at the bottom where the data provider is.
Yeah, and if I remember rightly, the color coordination of that output is that the light blue denotes the back end.
Yes, yes. So this is the whole thing about it. Most of this stuff that will always look the same. It's very similar. It always goes through this function module because this is the it's basic It's a dynamic function module call here at this point if you look at the code, but it's pretty much always the same RFC function, which is basically an interface in function module form. You can't interface the function modules, obviously, but yeah, we don't worry about that too much because the bit you're really interested in is where did it get the data from the entity. So I could now go in here.
But just before you move on there, Ron, I have a quick question, and just because I like throwing a spanner in the works, bringing it back to what we're talking about in terms of tools and whatnot. So this is an excellent tool for tracing through and seeing where the request failed, and that's an SAP GUI. So obviously there's the gateway tools which run in Eclipse as well. So you probably see where I'm going with this question, which is there an equivalent tool within the ABAP for Eclipse plugin, which is on your desktop, that would show you this information, or is this purely a SAP GUI transaction?
I couldn't tell you that because I think the ABAP integration would need to be working probably for this to work. And we've always had problems getting that working. I could certainly look into it. Now one other thing that's quite useful is
You had a question there, DJ, just while Ron's bringing that up?
No, I was going to say, Ron, do you use any tools on a day-to-day basis, externally from SAP GUI, or are you pretty much embedded within SAP GUI for the stuff that you do?
Well, I don't. I only use the standard kind of developer tools that anyone would use for tracing what calls are being made.
Now there's a challenge. Standard developer tools. I think these days standard means different things to different people, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
So one thing that you do get in Gateway quite a lot is you'll get a response back that said it was a dump or it was a failure, and you get some exception. It doesn't really tell you what the nature of the problem was. Certainly when you've got problems within your OData content and you can't parse it properly, and people get quite stuck on that. Now, technique I picked up on by thinking it through was how will I find out what that exception means? So if I take the name of the exception, I don't have one to hand here, but if it was this one, for example, then all I need to do is open up an SE24, go to display, and because all exceptions work on the same model, I go to the constructor, and at the top I put a remote breakpoint in. And now when I run that, if I replay it again, what will happen is that the breakpoint will kick in once the exception is raised. And I can then use the call stack in the ABAP debugger to find out how it got there. If I step back, I'll find the method that it was running at the point where the exception was raised. I can probably put a breakpoint in there again, rerun it, and then it will stop at the point where the exception is about to occur, so I can then figure out what's actually wrong.
Yeah. So actually, what I'm getting out of this, and maybe
rather than a tool, but
yeah, but what I think what the listeners and the viewers might get out of this is that actually, from a gateway perspective, there are not many new tools to master. It's actually just traditional debugging skills that you need to handle a lot of this stuff. Would you agree, Ron?
It is, but I suppose it's how you approach the new, because it's not running under an old kind of procedural models.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, when we say new, I mean that's not new, is it?
Yeah. So it's about knowing that you've got the whole class stack things goes through.
Yeah,
and it's just you can't really say right. It's if you were to say start debugging this from the HTTP request coming in, it would take you half a day because there's so much stuff that goes through.
Yeah,
I want
I've done that.
Get to it from the other end.
Haven't we all?
Yeah. I mean, talking about that, it's actually quite interesting the way they've implemented the ABAP stack part of the the ICF, the Internet Communication Framework, because it actually does start with a remote function. Well, it actually starts with a PAI. No, a PBO, in fact. And tracing it all the way through there is actually quite an educational experience. So I recommend at least once in your lifetime to trace through the whole stack from a core all the way through to this.
Absolutely.
Just letting it one last time.
Yeah. If you flick over to my screen there for a second, DJ, I'm just reminded of this image. I love this image. I have this sticker on my laptop, the developers.sap.com. And what I love about this is the fact that we're literally, when we're talking about the tools, we're going through each part of it. So you've got the SAP, or sorry, the HTML5 over on the right, which I was talking about earlier with brackets and that kind of stuff. Got the mobile stuff, which I was talking about earlier. Ron's covering the kind of on-desktop tools. So I think that kind of leaves it up to you to cover the cloud stuff, DJ. No pressure.
Well, okay. I'll segue into that. Thank you, Brenton. So let me just put me back on the screen. What I'll do is I'll share my screen. I'll share the whole desktop, and we'll have one of those Hofstadter moments. But I'll just minimise that for a second. Ooh, right. Okay. So a couple of things. I mean, Brenton, you mentioned your brackets editor. I think the editor of choice for me for a good while, and it's still a great fallback, is of course Sublime Text. But to be honest, my editor of choice at the moment, when it's not Vim on the command line, obviously, which is Atom, which started out, it's from GitHub, and it started out as a closed source project, but now it's open source. And one of the really nice things is that it has some nice integration with Git, of course. So let me just find a, where shall we go into Dojon? That'll do. In fact, we can open it up at this place here, and if I start, you can see actually that.
Wait. Did you just launch that using obviously the command Atom? But did it launch the tree of the file structure of the files that are available to you?
Yeah, so it'll launch it wherever you are and give you that. And so I've got,
nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. So I've got basically, if I just use across there, but in fact, there we go. I've got that one over there. So yeah, I've got different directories and different sort of window instances as well. Actually, funnily enough, one of the really cool tools that I use a lot on this Mac. I'm quite new to OS X, but my son Joseph told me about this, which is spectacles. So I can do sort of 2/3 screen, third screen, half screen, full screen.
Wait, what was that called?
Spectacles.
Spectacles.
Oh, spectacles. Sorry, yeah, it's
that's
great.
New.
It's
I'm gonna get that one.
Keyboard-based sort of window sizing. It's just so useful. Anyway, so yeah, I use Atom, and I've actually been developing, maybe not developing it enough yet, but I've been developing a plugin for Atom called UI5 Snippets. In fact, there it is there. So it's available on the Atom package channel.
Oh, excellent.
It's for UI5, so you can do all sorts of things like, well, in fact, let's do that right now. If we have a, let's go and find in JS, we can have and it will allow me to put, and there's all sorts of stuff. It's a little bit like the package thing I did for Sublime Text as well. So I use Atom. And you can see it's got color-coded stuff for, so that means it's new to Git, orange for change, and so on. Quite nice there. It tells me how many changes I've got there from a Git perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, Atom. Look into. I mean, I think it's Mac only at the moment, but definitely worth looking into. The Vim mode, which I've got, comes from this plugin called what is it called? Packages. There you go. Vim. Can I find Vim?
Or VI possibly.
Search for Vim mode. Yeah, I've got Vim mode installed. I've also, of course, got UI5. There, snippets for SAP and OpenUI5. Learn more. Where's that go? Oh, let's go to the Ask My Open Packages UI5 snippets when it responds. One of the really cool tools that I use as well. I mean, I know that Brenton, you mentioned protocols, and one of the things we looked at in the previous video podcast was, of course, the developers, which are here. I think this is my most favourite and most used tool, if you can call it a tool, I suppose you can call it a tool, ever. It's absolutely fantastic. It's just everything you need to know. However, there's also, I'll just get rid of that again, also a really nice tool, which I think some people know about. It's a UI5 tool. Well, I don't know whether it's got a name or not, but if you hit Control-Alt-Shift-S, you'll bring up diagnostics. And you can, in fact, let me just make that half screen and make that half screen as well. And if we have a look at the, actually I need to make that a bit bigger, have a look at the control tree, we can see all the different
That's
controls. Cool. And we can also change things as well. I mean, it's very nice. Actually, change the title.
What was that keyboard shortcut again, DJ?
Control, I think it's in Control-Alt-Shift-S.
Okay. I've just installed Spectacles, by the way.
As well. Yeah. So it's really nice for debugging. This is probably the biggest part of the diagnostics I use, a control tree, to find out the structure of stuff. Of course, we've mentioned Git already, and GitHub, source code control. One of the other things I use a lot and I love, and I recommend people check it out, there's a pro version coming to sort of help the JSBin folks support it. It's not out yet, but I'll be subscribing. JSBin. JSBin is really, really nice online, but you can also, I've actually got a copy I can run locally. Where was that? Let's see, project, JSBin, bin, really locally. I've got my own copy of JSBin running on 3000.
Oh, nice.
You know, again, when you're on the train and stuff. But the more interesting thing is you can configure it. So I've actually got Vim mode. So proper Vim controls. It's fantastic. But the beautiful thing about JSBin is it just works. It just enables you to build stuff.
Is it just me dropped out, guys, or are you dropped out as well?
Who's dropped out? No, I'm not dropped out.
It's just me, so ignore me. I'm fine.
So I've got auto run turned off, but you can have it turned on, and it's really what I've got is a nice theme, a Zen theme here. So yeah, it's great, and we've also got, of course, the UI5, the Open UI5 library in there already. So have a look at JSBin. It's really, really nice. So yeah, there's tons of stuff to talk about, but I guess we don't want to have this video podcast go on too long. So what I'm going to do is just flip back to my Hangout and stop screen sharing.
Yeah, just installed Spectacles, by the way, so thank you for that one. I always like picking up on new tools.
Yeah, it's really nice. Just sits in the command bar or whatever it's called at the top there, and works really well. So I guess that's it for this episode of Opening the Toolbox. I think we might have some more people like Ollie and Lindsay and John from our team that want to share stuff as well. There's all sorts of things, and one of the nice things about tools and toolboxes is that a lot of the tools are very personal, and it's always nice to find out what other people use.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So with that, Brenton, wave goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Ron, do you want to wave goodbye?
Goodbye.
Come in, Ron. Earth to Ron. Goodbye from Norwich.
I should be here.
Okay, and it's goodbye from me. Thanks for watching, and until next time,